Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first podcast in Introduction to Research Methods or Introduction to Research in Social Studies. Now, this morning we will be discussing about the types of research. Last time we have already discussed the two major types of research, and those are qualitative and quantitative research. Now we will be discussing four additional types of research, and these are basic research, applied research, the traditional research, and the action research. Okay, so let's start with basic research. Well, basic research is an investigation that adds to the knowledge of a particular area of study but may have no obvious and immediate applications to real-world settings. It helps expand man's knowledge, but it is not intended to create or invent something. Example: research that is done in laboratories and computer simulation are examples of basic research. In addition, basic science investigations probe for answers to questions such as how did the universe begin? What are protons, neutrons, and electrons composed of? How do slime molds reproduce? And what is the specific genetic code of fruit fly? So those are examples of basic research. Okay, let's proceed to the next type of research. That is applied research. Now, what is applied research? This is an investigation that does have obvious and immediate applications. Again, it has obvious and immediate applications. More often, it takes place in a real-life setting such as schools, hospitals, or nursing homes. Okay, so that's an applied research. For example, applied researchers may also investigate ways to improve agricultural crop production, treat or cure a specific type of disease or illness, or improve the energy efficiency of homes, offices, or modes of transportations. Okay, so that's an example of an applied, those are examples of areas where applied research can be done. Let's proceed to traditional research and action research, but first we will discuss traditional research. Now, traditional research tries to describe, predict, and control the area being investigated. It is conducted by professional researchers, example, university professors, and can always be done, or it is usually done in controlled environment using mainly quantitative methods with the goal of generalizing to the larger population. So this is basically the most common type of research that we are doing. Okay? Now, in traditional research, it always involves experimentation. That's why we're using quantitative methods. In pure sciences, we're doing traditional research. Now, let's proceed to action research. Well, what is action research? Action research is usually conducted by education practitioners with goal of improving the particular institution of study. Okay, it is usually conducted by teachers and principals with students in that school as participants. Now, an example of an action research is if you wanted to resolve certain concerns or issues in a particular institution, or you wanted to improve the, let's say, for example, a particular area in a certain institution, then you can conduct an action research. Well, let's say, for example, you wanted to differentiate or you wanted to identify or determine what type of learning strategies are effective for social studies majors, then you can conduct an action research. Now, let us differentiate totally traditional from action research in terms of purpose, context, data analysis, and sampling. In terms of purpose, traditional research tends to always draw conclusions. Okay, so in scientific investigations, particularly in pure sciences, we are always doing this traditional research, and it is always intended to draw conclusions. The focus is on advancing knowledge in the field. Insights may be generalized to other settings. Whereas in action research, this is intended to make decisions. The focus is more on improvement of educational practice, and it has limited generalizability. Meaning to say, let's say for example, the 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 subject or the topic of interest that I have been mentioning, or that I have been mentioning a while ago, is that in order for us to determine what learning strategies are effective for social science majors or social studies majors, then we can conduct an action research. The main reason for this is to improve the educational practice, and it has only a limited generalizability, meaning to say it is only limited to social studies majors. Now, in terms of context, traditional research focuses on theories and the basis of um, I mean, the basis of hypotheses and research questions are derived from more general theoretical propositions. Okay? But in action research, the practice is always the basis for research questions, basis of research questions, and the theory plays a secondary role. Okay? Now, in terms of data analysis, traditional research has rigorous statistical analysis. Why? Because it is always using quantitative methods. Now, in action research, it is more focused on practical and not on statistical significance. In terms of sampling, the traditional research uses random or representative sample. Let's say, for example, your total population in a certain area of study is 1,000, then you can only choose from among those participants. Let's say you can only choose 100 or 200 or 300 representatives that would, of course, speaks up for the entire population, and you can use random sampling in order for you to choose who will be your participants. But in action research, it is focused on the particular participants in with whom your subject of study or topic of interest may work. Let's say, for example, if you, again, let's use the topic that I was mentioning a while ago, that in order for you to determine the effectivity of learning strategies to social studies majors, then you only choose social studies majors. You will not include other courses in your action research. Next, okay, let's proceed to the next slide. Let's talk about research proposals. Of course, you have to familiarize how to do the research proposals, because the major output for this subject at the end of the semester, of course, is for you to write a research proposal. Now, What is a research proposal? A research proposal is a document that describes the planned research process. This is the first step towards master's thesis and doctoral dissertation. Of course, in order for you to start a research study, you must have written your research proposal. What are the components of research proposals? The first component there, which is very important, is what we call literature reviews. Now, let me clarify. Literature here is not similar to the literature subjects that you are taking as part of your curriculum. Literature review here, literature here is a relevant information about, relevant information about your topic of interest, or these are what we call existing body of knowledge about a certain topic. It could be in a form of article, books, or journals, other information or reliable information from reliable sources as well. Now let's proceed. Literature review has two purposes. The first purpose is to, I mean, the first purpose is it should convince the reader that the researcher is familiar with the literature to conduct investigations. Meaning to say, by doing literature review, you can become more knowledgeable about a certain topic or your topic of interest, and by doing so you can convince your reader that you are really familiar with the existing knowledge about the topic of interest that you are going to conduct investigations of. Okay, and it also will help establish that you really are and authorized in the field of your study. Number two, it should convince the reader that the proposed study fits into existing body of knowledge and how the proposed study is needed to fill a gap in the literature. Meaning to say, class, that by doing literature review, you can identify what are the missing informations in the previous or existing body of knowledge. Okay, let's say for example they have already studied something about this phenomena, but in doing literature review you can identify um, what else more can I add up to that existing knowledge that are not yet in the particular um, study. Yan. So, yun yung sinasabi natin, fill a gap in literature. What are the missing information? What else are important knowledge that could be added into that existing body of knowledge? Now, let's proceed to the elements of research proposals. Well, in this topic, there are three components, no? And I will be giving you also the possible techniques in order for you to meet your goal in addressing these three components. So the first component here is the compelling reason why study should be conducted. Meaning to say, you have to see to it that your study is beneficial and the society or the community can benefit from it. Okay, do not conduct studies that are only intended for keeping in the archives. You have to see to it that it could also help improve the society or the community in general. So what are the possible techniques? Yeah. So describe previous research and why is it incomplete. Let's say, for example, you have done your literature review. You have to see to it that you have identified the gap in the knowledge and you focus on that particular missing information. Make it your goal that yours is the next best study. Meaning to say, you don't have to conduct a study that is only mediocre. Meaning to say, have to see to it that your study is applicable or could have an influence or could help improve practices in a society or in a community. Next is present a sufficient literature review. This will depend on the study being proposed and the audience reading proposal. The review should convince readers that the researcher is knowledgeable and that the study is needed to fill a gap in existing literature. I will always, keep always in your mind that when you do a research, you have to see to it that you are looking for information that is not yet existing in the previous body of knowledge. That's what we call filling in a gap in existing literature. Next component, okay, specifications of methodology. When you're writing research proposals, class, you have to see to it that you have already specified your methodology. Methodology is also known as the procedures that you will be using in your study. First is, what are the possible techniques? By the way, identify the sample of participants you want to study. Meaning to say, in order to do this, you have to first identify what are the methods, might be it is qualitative or quantitative, so that you could easily identify the number of participants that you want to study. And of course, it should also be based on the nature of research that you are going to conduct. Next is describe the instruments or techniques you will use to observe these participants. Okay, so as what I have mentioned earlier, if it is quantitative, then you have to describe the techniques that you will be using. If it is qualitative, then you have to do the same. Okay, in instruments, you can do survey method. That's why you can use a questionnaire instrument, or you can also conduct interview through or like focus group discussion, something like that. Next is specify particular data analysis techniques that match the type of data you will open. Meaning to say, you have to identify whether if it is quantitative, then you have to identify your statistical analysis. Let's say ANOVA, MANOVA, correlation analysis. It could be independent t-test, chi-square, etc. If it is quantitative. If it is qualitative, you don't need statistical analysis. Next component is convincing argument for the reader that the outcomes of the study will be important. What are the possible techniques? Assume that the reader is always skeptical. Means to say the element of skepticism is here. You have to anticipate a so what question in response to your proposal. So in order for you to remove that, you have to see to it that you have a convincing argument that the outcomes of your study will be important. You have to ensure to tell pure researchers how your study will add to the body of knowledge. Okay? Pure researchers. Tell applied researchers and practitioners why your findings will be important to those working in the field. What are the benefits of your research to these what we call or it be applied in a particular field of discipline. Let's say, for example, could it be useful in agriculture, in social works, or in other field of disciplines? And of course, you have to aim to get your reader as excited about the study as you are. Meaning to say, you have to do it in a clear and excellent manner so that it could be easily understood by the readers. Okay, now for your learning exercise, I will be giving you a An assignment about literature review. Let me read first. Lists of possible articles to read for a literature review can be built quite quickly using keyword searches of electronic databases. There are several social science databases. The most common are Psychoinfo, Econlit, SocIndex, and the popular one, which is the JSTOR. Okay, so what does this mean? Okay, if you wanted to search a certain topic for literature review, you can only use keyword searches. Okay, let me read the next. Do a keyword search in each of these databases using some combination of two of the following terms: children, religion, poverty, or family. Again, you can only choose two from among these terms, four terms that I have included here. You can choose children and family or family and poverty. Okay, those are examples of keyword search. Now, you have to answer this question here. I have two questions included here. Okay, let me read. Did the searches in the four databases yield different articles? What might explain the differences? Now, what you're going to do here is to search or to go to these four databases and use any of these terms here, a combination of two. Okay, input it on the search engines of each of these databases and then check if the articles or the title of articles that will appear in each of these four databases are different or the same. And in that way you can answer these two questions. Well, these two questions will be written in our quiz link, and I will send you the link in order for you to write your answers there. Now, in order for you to understand fully what I mean in this exercise, let me give you an example. So let's proceed to the next slide. Okay, so this is the site of JSTOR. You can just go to Google, then type JSTOR on the Google search engines, and then I have used the two terms. I have combined children and family, and this is what it appeared. No? Yan. Next is this one, ebsco.com. This is for Econlit. And then I have typed already also children, family, and okay. There are some titles that appeared in here. So what you're going to do is to check if the articles that appear or the title of materials that appear in this four databases are different or the same. Capture a picture of, let's say for example, at least first four articles that appear in each of these databases, and then you send it or paste it on a letter-sized bond paper and then send it to our Google Classroom. Okay? If you have questions regarding this learning exercise, please feel free to message me. Okay, thank you for watching and see you on our next podcast.